Hi, I'm Tina Fey. Mrs. Bullock has hired me to teach you about the northern colonies. Turns out that this is very interesting. You see, the United States of America has quite a religious heritage. The people that settled in the northern colonies were Christians. They came here because they wanted to practice their religion freely, without interference from the government. Listen to see how it all played out. Back in England, Henry VIII caught on to the Protestant Reformation. It was a convenient way for him to get a divorce from his wife. The Pope wouldn't allow it, so he decided that he was the king and he would start his own church and he would be in charge of it. It is called the Anglican Church. Some just call it the Church of England. There were people that were not happy with the changes he made, or lack thereof. They said the church was still too Catholic. They wanted to purify the church from its Catholic traditions, so they are called Puritans. There were also separatists in England that wanted to completely separate from the Church of England. It was too bad, so sad for the Puritans and separatists in England. They still had to pay taxes to the church and attend services. They could be put in jail for speaking out against the church. One group of separatists heard that the Netherlands had religious freedom and decided, I want to go to there. They found that the Netherlands was not all they hoped. War with Spain was coming, work was not easy, and their children were losing their English roots. Then they decided, let's start a joint stock company to raise funds so they can go to the New World. The Virginia Company charter gave them land to settle, and at the end of 7 years the land and profits would be split between the colonists and investors. About 35 of these pilgrims or saints loaded the Mayflower. 60 others were also on board. They were called strangers. So they set sail. They were supposed to land at the Hudson River. Due to a storm they ended up around Cape Cod and therefore not under the authority of the Virginia Charter. To solve this problem, before they landed they signed the Mayflower Compact, promising allegiance to King James and agreed to make just and equal laws for the good of the colony. This was a historic step toward self-government. They landed, explored, and settled in a harbor just south of present-day Boston. Unfortunately, they arrived just as the winter of 1621 was coming. By spring, half of the group had died. A few survived with the help of the Wampanoag Indians. The next year they had so much success that they held a harvest feast with the Wampanoag, which we now celebrate as Thanksgiving Day. The colony did not grow very large. It remained self-governing until 1691, when it became part of Massachusetts Bay Colony. The success of Plymouth Colony inspired thousands of other Puritans to move to New England. Some Puritan merchants convinced the king to let them organize Massachusetts Bay Colony, which I will refer to as MBC, in order to make a profit and be a refuge to Puritans. John Winthrop was chosen to lead 11 ships and 700 people to New England in 1630. He told the people, "For we must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are on us." MBC grew quickly and established surrounding towns nearby. Boston was the center, with Salem, Watertown, and Concord surrounding it. They set up a government. Each town had elected representatives to the court. The court elected council members and the council was led by Winthrop. The success of these colonies led to the Great Migration. Between 1620 and 1643, 20,000 English people settled in New England. Life in NBC was deeply rooted in its religious beliefs. People were expected to attend services, pay taxes to the church, and obey rules about behavior, dress, and speech. Speaking out against the church was not allowed. Thomas Hooker, a Puritan minister, believed that the government should be chosen by everyone. His disagreement with Winthrop led him and his congregation to leave the colony. In 1639, they adopted America's first written constitution, the Fundamental Order of Connecticut, allowing everyone, not just church members, to vote. Roger Williams believed in religious tolerance and that church and government matters should be separate. He purchased land from the Narragansett Indians and established Providence, in present-day Rhode Island. Church and government were separate and all faith were welcome. Then there was Anne Hutchinson. She believed that people did not need a minister's teachings in order to be spiritual. She was banished from the colony. Her family established New Hampshire, which became a royal colony under the direct control of the king. With Thomas, Roger and Anne gone, maybe there could be peace in MBC. No way. Hysteria swept through Salem in 1692 when several girls were exhibiting strange behavior and claimed they were bewitched. The girls accused several women of witchcraft and hundreds of women were arrested and 19 were executed. Luckily, the craze quickly passed and prisoners were freed. So, other than witch hunts, what was life like in New England? Well, they set up public schools so that children could read the Bible and learn a skill. By the 1700s they had established Harvard and Yale. Generally in the colonies, the town was the center of life for government and business. Each town had a grassy area called a common where people gathered. Church members and property owners could vote. Then there were those Native Americans. As the colonies grew, so did the tensions. Some English still wanted to convert them, but some were viewing them as heathens and wanted to kill them or drive them out. In 1637 there was a conflict in Connecticut over land and trade. Colonists with their Indian allies raided the Pequot fort, setting it on fire and killing nearly all of the Pequot people. In 1675, the Wampanoag leader, Metacomet, known to the English as King Philip, led his people in attacking several colonies. In return, colonists burned villages and crops. Nearly all the Wampanoag and Narragansett Indians were killed. Survivors were sold as slaves or fled. Now southern New England would be open for even more white settlers. Certainly more conflict and excitement is ahead. More colonies would be established for religious reasons and others would develop for different reasons. Stay tuned and be nice to Mrs. Bullock because she is awesome.